US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday concluded his visit to China, where he held meetings with top Chinese leaders, including President Xi Jinping. Both sides reached an agreement to stabilize China US relations. While Secretary Blinken's remarks addressed some of China's concerns, it remains to be seen whether the US will follow through on its commitments. To gain insights into the outcomes of this visit and its impact on China US relations, we spoke with Joseph Gregory Mahoney, Professor of Politics and International Relations at East China Normal University. How do you assess the overall tone and outcome of Blinken's China visit?
I think overall there are three positives to note. The first is that he actually showed up, he came, that he had a civil diplomatic tone. And this, I think, opened the door to him meeting President Xi. There was some modest progress on cooperation, perhaps most notably on fentanyl, and maybe this paves the way for other steps forward on other fronts.
Blinken at his press conference remarked that coming into China, it was clear that the bilateral relationship was at a point of instability, and both sides recognized the need to work to stabilize it. Would you say that this visit could be seen as the first step towards stabilizing of China-US ties?
This is what China wants. It wants a stable relationship. It wants to return to some sort of normal that both sides can build positively around. And I think this is what the many around the world want. But I think the key concern is that it's not yet clear that this is what the U.S. really wants, even in this moment. And whether it will want it next year or 2 years from now, especially if a new administration takes office, I think there's still some concern given the separation that we see between what the U.S. says and what the U.S. does. And what will really be imperative is over the next few weeks and few months, especially over the course of the summer, if we see additional high-level meetings taking place, is whether or not we'll actually see constructive change, whether the words will actually turn into action. Until that is the case, I don't know that we can really say that this meeting signifies turning a corner in the relationship and moving forward in a positive way.
Meanwhile, Wang Yi, the director of the Office of the Foreign Affairs Commission of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, after meeting Blinken, he also admitted that China-US ties are at a low point, while noting that the US's wrong perception of China is the root cause of the current situation. Do you agree with this assessment?
The U.S. has by far been the key source of provocation and antagonism, crossing many of China's red lines related to sovereignty, security, development, international relations, trade, and so on. And we're in this now, and this is something that the U.S. has instigated. It's instigated because China has risen and because the U.S. is in a period of relative decline and wants to maintain its hegemony over global affairs, both militarily and financially. And China, of course, is looking towards a more equitable world, greater democracy in international relations, and a multipolar framework. So yes, in this case, Wang Yi's comments were well-founded.
China has shown some sincerity in its commitment for a dialogue with the US, as evident by the welcome Blinken received from the top leadership here. He was received by President Xi Jinping, Wang Yi, and also China's State Councilor and Foreign Minister Qin Gang. Blinken still thought it pertinent to raise the most speculative and unfounded US concerns over China providing military assistance to Russia at his presser. How do you read this?
Well, it's not surprising that Blinken slipped something negative into the discussion. It's certainly the case that the U.S. hates China's good relationship with Russia, hates the fact that China avoided global inflation in part by buying discounted oil from Russia, and hates that Chinese neutrality has put Beijing in the best position among all of the nations to mediate peace in Ukraine. So the strange thing is, I view this merely as a rhetorical strategy of appearing to talk tough and to pretend that he's representing American and Ukrainian and European interest against Russia and China, while also, saying something that most people don't believe. Consequently, I'm inclined to view it as not that bad.